everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and the Indie Show. Tonight we are talking Monstress Volumes 2 and 3, and I have my Monstress panel with me tonight. First up, we got Los. What's going on, man?
Yo, what's happening? Good to be here. This should be interesting.
Yeah, interesting, I think, is a good word for this. So, next up, we got Mr. TacomaComics, who's trying to survive out in the Northwest.
Yeah, I just got back from a battle of the Kumeya, but I survived, and I'm here, ready to go.
That's good. That's good. We're glad that you're safe at the moment, at least, with all the craziness out there. So glad to have you here. And finally, we got my man, Dayymares. What's going on, man?
Hey, not much. How you doing?
I am doing pretty good. So tonight, we are talking Monstress. And I'm just going to throw it out there. I don't know that I've ever read anything that I enjoy this much that I have less understanding of what the hell is going on like half the time.
I think we can end the show now. That pretty much summed it up.
Yeah, I mean, that is a perfect summary of this. I don't know where it's going. I don't know when we're in the middle of an arc, when we're at the end of an arc. I don't know when we're like learning the final truth about her mother or about the demon or about the sorcerers or about the gods. And I don't care because it's really enjoyable and the art's amazing and the writing's powerful. Mariko's a great character. And, you know, the more this world expands, I'm still there. I'm still there for it. I haven't given up. Like, what the fuck? I'm actually
I'm still thinking that, but I'm enjoying it while I'm thinking it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's one of those things where it's a little confusing, but it's enjoyable because it does keep you on your toes, right? It's not something where it's you know exactly what's coming and you just like, oh, it's predictable, and you're like, like this is definitely not that. You know, if you want to be kind of like thrown for a loop while you're reading, this is definitely the book for you.
It is definitely, you don't know where it's going. This is as unique a story as I think I've read in a very long time in terms of, I mean, it has some of the common tropes of these kinds of like storytelling, but this is like, there's so much going on here that it's just, and the characters are deep and there's complex and the alliances and antagonists and like everybody's against everybody, and there's just so much going on that it's hard to keep track of, but like they give you enough to keep you interested is I think the way I think about it. Like it's like the whole time you're like, what the hell is happening? And yet you're like, okay, wait, no, I got just enough to like keep me like feeling like I can figure this out at some point.
Yeah, I feel like there is it's odd, but there so far from what I can see, there's no real like good guy. There's no like good guy or bad guy. Like you can't just point to be like that right there, that's the bad guy. We know he's the bad guy or she's the bad guy. And it's like everybody seems to be their own sort of evil at one point. It's like, what the hell? It's like, you guys are all assholes. Like,
yeah.
I'll be honest, like the only character in here that's not an a-hole is Kippa, the little
Kippa.
Kippa, exactly.
And she's just trying to follow her heart, but I get the sense that Kippa will either survive and grow to be a leader of her own, or because of her innocence and her inability to be as ferocious as you know, Maika says, she's going to end up at a sorry ending. It's just not make it. Like it could go either way, but you know, they've got that character to play with. She's kind of the only pure character.
Yeah,
you thought the cat was at first, and then you realize the cat's as duplicitous as anything. You know, definitely not. So it's I'm interested in what happens to Kippa. I mean, Maika will either have a glorious death or a glorious victory, but it'll be glorious, you know.
Yeah.
Kippa, I'm interested to see what's going to happen with her because it's a lot going on, like you said.
Yeah, it definitely is.
So, I don't know. I think we just covered kind of our general thoughts on reading these 2 volumes. You guys got anything else till we start actually digging into this a little bit?
One last thing is, I reread volume 2 for this show after having read it probably right about a month right after we finished volume 1. I think I read volume 2 like the next day. Then I haven't touched it in the last 3 months. But rereading it today, you can get away from some of the specifics and you can get a little bit more of a general storyline, right? Like, I think what they do so well in this that I appreciate that they don't do in a lot of other comics is like you'll go into a scene and there'll be a new character that just like attacked this character and they don't bother to explain it to you. They're just like, you're smart, figure this out. This one just came in and now they're fighting. And then in the next panel, there's a resolution. Then there's a new guy and then like, bam, stab you in the heart. Oh, okay. But like, it can be disconcerting at first and hard if you're trying to follow a narrative. But once you are aware of that narrative, you can kind of sit back. And the second read through, I was able to be like, all right, I got what's going on. I see what's going on. I know where it's going, so I don't have to worry about where this person came from. I'm like, okay, I know who they are now because it explains it. When you read it the first time, you're trying to like just compartmentalize everything in your brain and go this, then that, then this. And it can drive you a little crazy. It really can. Hey, Big Will.
Big Will, what's going on, man? So it definitely, like, I think that's a good way to break it down, Tacoma, because like the overarching story is clearly is this girl and this old god that's inside of her. She's trying to find they're trying to together almost. He's trying to remember and find his path, and she's trying to figure out who she is and what her purpose is to a certain degree and where she comes from, really. And the entire world is out to get them. Like, it doesn't matter what faction, and there's about 100 different factions that are all in different elements of battle with each other, but they're all out to get her because they see her as
a weapon,
or the biggest threat to the world potentially of any of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a very. So the overarching story is this girl really doesn't have any friends other than the little fox and this cat that is, I think, slowly becoming her friend, but was really like initially there to double cross her. And
has double crossed her, yet has stuck with her and they've kept him around, right? So it's really interesting.
Yeah.
So let's start. Before we get into like the storylines, I want to talk more about the art of these that continues to go in these books. Sana Takada or Takeda or however you pronounce it is freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like every panel is ridiculous. And like I'm just gonna start showing random panels. Like I don't have a plan for what I'm gonna look at because you don't have to like look at like I mean
it's phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah. And one thing I noticed
JP, before, like in the pre-gaming, that you can basically take almost any interior page and make it a cover because they're that good. It's just like, holy crap, especially when there's the 2-page spreads and you're like, holy crap. Like it's just, the artwork is just amazing.
One thing that I found really interesting is whenever someone is being like truly evil, their character looks evil.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
Even if it's the same person, they may be beautiful, and well drawn and stuff. Yeah. And, on like page 10, and then like on page 20, whenever they do a double cross, they'll look,
So, Dayymares, I didn't mean to interrupt, but what JP, put that one back up for a second.
Oh, right. I was
He gave the pictorial evidence to support your thesis, right?
Yeah.
when we first meet this true fox, Kip is like, I smell a pure fox, right? Not an Arcana mixed, but a pure blood fox.
Mm-hmm.
He's chained up and he's like, I'll give you some information and you'll let me out.
You let me out.
And then after she
Here's the first panel. Here's
right,
Yeah.
there you go. And okay, so wise old fox. Maybe he's playing with my instincts. We don't know yet. And then once she doesn't like let him cross her and she snuffs him out, then boom, just what Dayymares said. And I'm sorry to interrupt your flow.
No, that's fine. That was a perfect example.
Jake held it up, and now you're like, okay, Fox is evil.
Yeah,
Fox is evil. There's no doubt about Fox being an evil motherfucker.
When sometimes you even see him come back to like being pretty again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But sometimes if but whenever they're doing something truly evil, they look horrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And you can eat like it's highlighted so much too. Like it's so well done. You can see the way they put the shadows and darkness of it. And it's like all of a sudden they get really evil. It's like holy shit! All of a sudden everything gets really dark around. Them. Like oh crap! It's like yep, something bad's gonna happen. Something bad's gonna happen. But the artwork is excellent. It's excellent.
Yeah. Does this release every other month or like every 6 weeks? It feels like to do this level of detail that it can't be monthly. And I think
I know they do like
6 weeks.
They do like runs of like 6 issues and then they take breaks.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe that's it. They just like
but they also I don't think even then I think they don't come out like monthly. I think it is like 6 weeks or 2 months.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
What it feels like, yeah.
Because they're only it's what up to issue like 30 only in the
20,
yeah, it's just now
or 30, yeah.
20, yeah, right, 29 or 30. So I know it's not very very long so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, that was an I like that picture. It's like he's just like let's read to this old god right here who's in love.
She's domesticated him.
Yeah,
that's the
he's in love with me. Let's read him a bedtime story. It's like what the hell?
So, okay. What I really like is as we're getting into chapter 7, right? That's the beginning of this arc.
Yeah.
The end of chapter 6 was that picture of her friend.
Yep.
Who's like, oh, I know all the places to find her. Don't worry, we'll go track her down.
Tuya.
Yeah. You don't see her again.
No.
Except in flashback and one little meeting that she had with one of the other bad guys until the 3rd volume. So they set her off, right, as like I'll find her. Don't worry, I know what's going on. Right here in this beautiful with the Falcon, and then she disappears for six issues. I thought you were the big thing, and you weren't the big thing yet. Even though she's talking to you a lot, you're not there yet.
No. Yeah, they definitely set that up well for her to come back later, and they kind of like brush on what she was actually doing behind the scenes to get to where she needs to be at and stuff like that. So you kind of see those little, like you said, all those entanglements and the back room, allies or they're trying to like. So there's a lot of finagling and a lot of people trying to get ahead and stuff and building these so-called alliances, which all of them seem like they're not going to hold. None of these alliances are going to stay.
So, out of curiosity, I went and looked, and it started in November of 2015. And they've had 30 issues.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
I mean,
that's about every 2 months. But I think,
holy cow!
I mean, but look at the detail, and that's just like the center panel of a page. I mean, there's like, it's not even like, it's just.
Can I say the captain
so many words?
The captain of that ship is really hot. She reminds me of like Grace Jones back when she was in the Bond film back in the early 80s, right? just a tall, statuesque, like, don't you dare cross me.
Yeah.
Right. That's what came to mind. I was like, wow.
Yeah. No, she was definitely a badass. You know, just like, yeah, you know, you do anything, I'll toss your ass over because I don't care. It's like you the fox, the cat, I'll throw you all over. I don't care. It's like, oh geez, like.
So I don't know, JP, if you want to actually do like a linear narrative here or just keep talking.
We can go however you guys want. Like AK Titus, Jungle 48.
Well, so I mean, we start off right there. There's this they're in this old house that Maika's mother used to look in, and we again see this, like, I don't want to call it abusive, right? Because that's putting my own value system on it. But she's really mean to Kippa. She's like, I'm going to shove you in this room and lock you in there. You use your fox scent to find it. And at first you're like, oh, that's mean. That's Kippa. Be nice to Kippa. But she uses her fox scent and she's like, behind that wall. Okay. Were you really going to lock me in there forever? And she's like, maybe. I'm going to punch this wall now and find this extra bone fragment. Which we later find out is the bone fragment of a god, of course, on the mysterious isle behind the white veil of impenetrable mist that you're going to have to travel to.
Yeah. So I want to talk about that a little bit because, like, not necessarily that scene, but just Maika and her personality. Because one of the things Lois and I were talking about before you guys hopped in and backstage was she's an a-hole. like, you know, like, I really enjoy the character, but she's not a very nice person. But what we do start to get in this volume and in volume 3 is we start to get these little snippets of why she is who she is. Mm-hmm. Like how her mother raised her. And we don't yet know, like, exactly the choices her mother made that led to her being born and having, like, basically, but we realized from this that her mother knew that she was going to have this power, this god, this granddaughter god. Yeah. And she's basically raised her and then given her situation that she went through the war and everything else. But even before that, her mother was raising her to be a biznatch to, like, take care of herself.
Stone cold killer.
Right? Yeah, to be a stone cold killer. And so you start to get a picture, like, from volume 1, it was like, she's just not a very nice person. And, like, our hero is not a very nice person, but you're starting to see why she's the way she is. And, like, even that scene, but yet Kippa seems to be the one person that brings out the other side of her at any time. Because even when she's being mean to her there, like, she goes out and shuts the door, but she's just standing there. Like, she knows that she's not actually there.
I'm trying to find that, and I missed it somewhere. I can't find it, but it's one of those things where she's like, you don't want to be around me, you know, everybody hates me when I'm like this or something. She's like, but I'm faithful to you. And Maika does a pause, and Sana Takeda does such a great job of just, like, focusing on Maika's face. And it might be at the end of volume 1, I can't quite remember, or early on in volume 2, but she realizes there's this, like, pure innocence that still has loyalty and faith to me, even though she's seen this monster come out of my left arm socket that destroys like gods. But yet this little fox girl is still, like, loyal to me and isn't afraid of me, or still loves me when she is afraid of me.
Yeah.
That was it. She was like, aren't you afraid of me? She's like, yes, but I still love you. And it really gets a deeper sense of that dynamic that you're talking about.
Yeah. She says it all the time. She's like, you know, everybody tells us, like, hey, you need to get out of here. You got to go here. Like, everybody's telling Kippa, just get away, do this. And she's like, no, she needs me. Like, I have to be there. And
she needs me, and I believe in her.
And she actually does. Like, you know, there is that, again, she's like her moral compass, right? Like, she is that thing that keeps her from just going over the edge and just losing it completely. And she keeps her grounded. And as crappy as she is to her, she knows that it's like, hey, this is not you, right? I know there's an old god in you. Maybe it's, you know, warping your mind or whatever. But I need to be here for you, right? And again, that pure innocence and that love is just like, no, I'm going to be here for you no matter what. You're not going to eat me. The monsters, you're going to stop the monster from eating me. I know you are. And just like, all right. It's like, you have more faith than I do, because
and Kippa comes across as very innocent, yet she is wise beyond her apparent years. Like, one of my favorite exchanges is after they're in the city and they get on the boat to go to this island, and Master Ren, the cat, is coming with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's after basically Maika's friends, the tigers, basically interrogated him. And Master Ren says, I wasn't lying about her friend, Kippa. I swore an oath to her. And Kippa's reply is, but you did betray Mist to the Dust Court. You were selfish and mean. My Mimi used to say everything happens for a reason, but sometimes that reason is you made a bad choice. Like, I hope you don't make any more of those, Master Ren. And, it's just like, in his face, when she's like telling him, like,
right. I'm right on the next page there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. So, just a side note here, May means little sister. We just fostered a new dog that we call May because she's a little sister of our previous dog who was a foster fail. And May in Mandarin, it means little sister, but just the word May, MEI, means pretty. So it's kind of like a way of saying pretty, but also saying little sister. So when I saw that again today, I was like, oh my God, that's our dog's name, May.
Nice.
I thought this one was kind of interesting. If I can get it up there. Well, I'll just sort of show you that, and then
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
So up there, she's saying, are you scared of me? And
That's
Little
what I'm
Fox says,
about.
yes. And then she replies back, we have that much in common. I'm scared of me too.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then she was like, don't cry once we get back. Once I get back my belongings, I'll leave you, with somebody else. So
Yeah. Which Kippa never allows. Like, even when they're going to go to the island, they're like, you're not going. And she just jumps in the water. She's like, no, you're
even not knowing how to swim,
Yeah.
Right. She's like, she barely makes it onto the boat, but there she is. So yeah, I mean, all throughout chapter 7, you get introduced to like this crew, this character Stacey, who apparently knew her mother from back in the day. And he seems like he's shepherding her in the right direction. He gets his guard to go and grab the cat, and maybe interrogates the cat a little bit, but brings them all on board. And he's like, hey, this is my best captain. You'll dig her and everything's good. And then a few chapters later, Stacey's talking to one of like the people who are chasing her, and he's kind of making wheeling and dealing too. So it's again what we all went back to the beginning. There's no easy good bad character. There's no way to there's no straight line in this narrative, I guess is this way to put it.
Well, and it goes to like a lot of, we get and I'm going to jump ahead, but like through like dealing with so she takes the boat to the island, and this is where they meet the fox that we showed earlier, the ancient, and who's been basically exiled there for
2,000 years.
Thousands of years, because he tried to destroy all the archaics because he's seen them as like abominations of the bloodline. And like we start to get like, and he's giving her information, but yet you can't believe like a word this guy is saying, and it's like, so how much of what he's telling her is true and how much is not? But at the same time, we're getting this information, like Zen, the god that's inside of her, is remembering things. Like, and it's very interesting to me because he is like, you're trying to figure out, because everybody talks about the old gods as just evil. It's the way like everyone in the world talks about them. But it's clear there's a lot of like nuance there that's going on, and like, and even he remembers doing this island is basically based on the body of an old god, like his skeleton and stuff is there. And he remembers that he's the one that killed his like sister brother, as they call him, because I guess there's no gender for this thing.
Brother,
yeah, it's like sister brother, or and it's
it's
just very interesting that you're getting like they keep giving you these snippets, but you still like we're 18 issues in, and I don't feel like we know anyone's agenda other than Maika's agenda appears to be she's trying to figure out where she comes from and why she has this power. Like beyond that, there's really no one's agenda, and she's very much self-centered, except for when it comes to Kippa, and even though she's like mean to her more times than not, because I think she's just trying to drive her away because she thinks it's better for her to not be around her. But so what do we think of like the fox and what he's telling her on this island? And
so just a second before she meets Fox, I want to see the movie just so I can see this scene. I want to jump out of my fucking seat and just freak out at that artwork right there. Like,
yeah,
it's just those guys right there. I mean, you've got every horror movie. Sorry, you've got every horror movie classic creature there in the shape of like little kids. Just before she's led into like before they realize there's actually a city on this island, and then she's led towards the fox. You know, he has information, and it's like you all said when you first meet him, old wise fox, right? And even Kip is like, I can smell there's a fox here. Once you start to realize, you get two things. You get Fox is not all he seems. Fox is probably evil, but you won't figure that out until you see evil Fox.
Yeah.
But Maika's not trusting of anybody really works in her favor. He's like, well, I'll give you information, you break my chains.
Yeah.
Okay. And he gives her information. She's like, F you, I'm not breaking your chains. So it's like, you know, I guess the trope is usually this exchange for that exchange in fantasy. But she says, I'll do it, and then just doesn't do it. And it's like, okay, maybe you can get away with that. Maybe there isn't like an overarching law in fantasy tropes that something bad will happen to you down the road. You just didn't trust him, and now he's trying to fight you, but you've got the evil mad sorcerer inside your body who will take him on for you. So
it was definitely one of those things where once he came on, he definitely he gave me that sense of like the old wise sage, and you know I was locked up here, you know, not on my own volition. You know, it was a misunderstanding that I was locked up or something like that, even though obviously you were locked up and banished for a damn reason. But he just the information that he gave her was spotty at best, and she recognized that. She's like, all right, well, you're not giving me the full story. You're just giving me bits and pieces so I can take the chains off, and thinking that this is all good. And she's like, well, you didn't tell me shit that I didn't really know, or, you know, it's not leading me to where I want to go, right? You know, she has an end game in mind. She's like, okay, this is where I need to be. This is where I need to go. The information you just gave me gives me nothing, right? I'm still at an impasse. She's like, you know what? Chains are staying on. Like, you didn't give me shit that I wanted, so you're staying. And then you can see the wheels in his head start turning like, all right, enough of this shit. I'm going full evil. It's like, you know, so but yeah, it's definitely worked in her favor of not trusting. And then of course she had Master Ren, who's like, hey, he's not all what he seems. Like, just be careful of this dude. So everybody was a little wary of him. So yeah.
Right before that, right, he tries one last ploy, and right, that illusion, right, that hammer of being the mother. And then the next page, this is probably like the purest distillation of Maika. She wants to believe so badly in that first panel, and then she's like, fuck you. My mother said the word please.
Yeah, never said please.
Right there, she's like, And then even in the next panel, Fox is a little bit more drawn towards that final one that JP showed. He's like, So it just leaves there so beautifully.
That was definitely a good one. You could see that she was almost kind of like, she was so pushed, like, oh wow. And then the minute she's like,
Mama,
it was like, nope. She's like, how do you know? Please. So I know this is fake. I was like, that is awesome.
Yeah, that is not my mother. You know, her memory.
Here's the worst analogy ever. It's like when the Emperor Snoke / Palpatine showed Rey her parents and is like, "You're one of us," and she's like, so close," and pulls back.
Yeah.
I don't know where that came from. Sorry.
Nice.
So, but I'll be honest, like, really what we're getting here is, like, the only thing, like, we get a little background that clearly there was, like, her mother, she was sort of born on purpose. Like, her mother, like, was interested in the Shaman Empress, was tracking the bloodline to try to believe that, like, she could harness the power of the Shaman Empress and this old god. And she appears to have done it in her daughter. But what we don't know is, like, why yet, or if that's really the whole story, because that's the way he presents it, that she's basically just an experiment.
Yeah.
But then we get the thing at the end, like, which I talked about before, is like why she is the way she is. And she has this flashback when she puts the piece of the mask on and remembers the scene with her mother. And basically, yeah, she's like, little wolf, where she's been captured by these people. And she's like, little wolf, your teeth. And then she just proceeds to kick the living crap out of these people that have captured her. Like, and she's teeny tiny. And it's just like, yeah, you see her like on top of this lady, like,
yeah,
like using her own weapon against her. And it's just like, okay, so she's always been like this.
Yeah,
right. But I mean, earlier than that, you have this scene where her mother is, quote, training her, and she's like, how many things on the desk could kill me? And she's like, well, I could stab you with a pencil, I could hit you over the head with the block, maybe I could throw the book at you. And the mother takes a scarf and, like, starts to choke her daughter, and she's like, you didn't think of the scarf? Now you know what it feels like. You've got to learn what it feels like. She's choking her daughter to death to teach her that a scarf could have been used, and she's mad at her for not knowing the scarf. So we don't know. And, you know, the way Monstress is, we won't know for a while.
And then you see that, though. Like,
right. Does the mother have good reason to be so harsh with her child? Or is the mother just an abusive mother? Or doing it towards her own ends? Is this really, Maika needs to know this? Or I want Maika to know this for my own benefit? And we don't know that yet. And that's why we all said it's enjoyable and we're still into it, even though we have no idea.
Where this is going.
That's the thing too, is like I know, you know, Maika's going and she's just trying to figure out, you know, her place in the world, why this thing is actually inside of her. You know, she kind of has like this, just like the god, the old god that's inside of her. You know, he kind of lost his memories and stuff like that. You know, being asleep for so long, where she kind of has like these gaps in memories as well. And you know, they're starting to get filled in, but we don't know what her mother's end game was, right? We don't know what her overall purpose was. We know that she kind of evolved her daughter into this kind of weapon, almost, you know, a tough exterior, you know, don't let anybody get close to you, basically. But we don't know to what end, right? What was the purpose of having this god inside of her? You know, was she trying to recreate the Shaman Empress? And maybe I'm jumping ahead, but you know what I mean? Like, what was she? We don't know what her ultimate end game was, and it's just like, why would you do this to your kid? And like, you know, the Fox was saying, you know, you were just an experiment, basically. You know, your mom was so involved and so entrenched in the lore of the Shaman Empress that you were just there because we're trying to revive her in you, or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those things where it's like, you're not relevant, basically. You're just a body. And, you know, it's just like, I don't think that's it. Like, there's
I don't think
you know, I'm not buying that. So yeah.
But I do think it's cool that you do get the payoff to that scene of her using his chain to choke him out and eliminate him, is like, after remembering that about her mother. What about you, Dayymares? What were some of your take homes from this volume 2 and the whole meeting with the Fox and going to the island?
Oh man, I mean, you guys pretty much covered it. There's just so much deception all the way around. I mean, in the whole book. I mean, you know, from start to finish, you know.
Yeah.
And so many twists and turns, and it keeps you on your toes.
Yeah.
but it's beautiful and you don't mind it.
Yeah.
There's definitely a few people that come in and I mean they might have been in that one issue and then they're gone and you're like, oh well,
yeah,
that person looked like they were going to be a big thing and then it's like no they're gone. Okay, then
Doesn't matter. So the other thing before we transition to volume 3, and I just want to ask you guys about this a little bit, but we talked about the way they've been writing this and how long it's taken it to come out, like that it started in 2015 and we're like 30 issues in, and part of that's the art. But the other thing is these 6-issue arcs are very much almost to a certain degree separate stories. Like they could almost be their own like movie or season of a show, or like they're set up that way because like we talked about the big transition from the end of volume 1 to the start of this, like it goes from her escaping and we thought 2 is going to be right behind her, and like then it's this completely side story about going to this island and trying to get some information on her mom, and then we come out of it and when we jump to volume 3 it's like forget the island, forget the boat captain, we're going somewhere else and we're going to a different city to basically for sanctuary, and like there's a complete transition sort of, and then suddenly the witches are back, which we didn't see the witches at all in volume 2.
Right. Yep.
And we meet a new witch in this thing, and like, so what do you think about the way they're telling the story in terms of the volumes being very much their own arc and separate like story sections? I mean, start with Dayymares, just because he hasn't.
I really like it. Part of the reason is me just now stumbling into it and reading it in trade paperback form. It just makes it so much easier.
Yeah.
I think it would be a little bit more maddening if you was going, waiting for the new issue to come out.
I don't know this monthly or semi-monthly or however the heck this is coming out, like issue to issue.
But to buy it in a trade paperback form where it's sort of like a series,
Yeah,
I really like that.
Yeah, I think I like the way they set it up only because it doesn't feel like it's just a run-on sentence, right? It doesn't feel like if it was just 30 issues or whatever, and it was just one continuously long, just drawn-out story, and you're just like, okay. But the way that they mix it up, and it's like, okay, it jumped from here, now she's in a new story. Now she's in it jumps, right? And it's like, okay, she was on this island, now all of a sudden she's on to Pontus and the sanctuary, and and now there's a whole new cast of characters, and there's a whole new situation for her to be in, and she just realizes like, hey, I was escaping the slavery and all this other stuff, and people were kind of trying to get me then when I was essentially a nobody. Now all of a sudden, in the second volume, she has to go to this island and people are still chasing her, but now it's different people that are chasing her, because she had the dust court and everything in the first volume. Now she's in this one, and now you have all these other people chasing her. Now in volume 3, a whole new cast of people, and some people from the first volume come back to get her and stuff like that. So now there's even more people to come get her, and you're like, holy crap, like Jesus, she can't go anywhere. It's like, but I like the jump in it, so it's not monotonous and it's not just one long running sentence. It's like, okay, jump from here. Now it's new cast, new crazy people, and like you said, it feels like new seasons, right? Where there's new people, new cast, and everything, and it kind of just jumps, so it keeps you on your toes, and it doesn't just, you don't get that lull, and you're like, okay, when are they gonna change up? And like, I'm tired of seeing this character. He's been in 47 issues already. Like, I don't want to see him no more. And whereas this one, it just keeps chopping it up and goes to different. So I do like that. It definitely keeps you on your toes. It's infuriating because again, you're trying to piece it together, and your mind just doesn't let you do it because it jumps on you, and you're like, oh, crap. But it's effective as far as like the storytelling goes. So I do appreciate that.
So, I mean, Dayymares pointed it out really well. These are my unread issues of Monstress, and this is 19, the first start of volume 4, until whatever the latest issue is, issue 30, 29, or issue 30.
30.
So 19 through 30, I haven't read because I don't want that maddening, like, longing for what what's going on. I want that volume that completes a little story. And I think it's interesting that you said it's like episodes of TV, and because I don't think they're trying to write a TV show, but I do think that they follow that a little bit, in as much as you kind of get the idea that, okay, you're done with this story now, next season we're going somewhere else. But it doesn't feel like the stakes are increased. It's not like, okay, you're at a little battle, then a bigger battle, then a bigger battle. I mean, the battle she was in when the Kumeya had her in that cell in the very first issue, which was like 3 issues long. Like the first issue, remember we said that was like not 24 pages. That was like 40 pages. The stakes in that were as tough as the stakes later when she's on the boat, or when she's on the island, or when she's in this new city in volume 3. Like, you know, they're just so vividly told and vividly drawn and imaginative that you're drawn into the story, even though it's not like, okay, this one is a little harder. It's not like Bruce Lee, right, going through the different levels of that. What was the movie where Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he wore all yellow, right? He had to go through each level to get to the top. It isn't like each level is harder. It's not like a quest in Dungeons and Dragons where each level is harder. It's like everything is a complete arc where it was just some badass shit that went down. And maybe you're getting pieces of a puzzle together and more memories, but it's not like you're going to have to fight a harder boss next one. It's like you're going to just have to keep on showing your different facets and how powerful you are.
Yeah.
And there may be harder boss, you know, at level 2 than there is at level 3.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be.
You know.
Yeah. So let's start to dig into volume 3 a little bit, because this gets, I feel like I was like, this is where I started really getting confused, like, about who all the players were, because so basically, like, the city she went to originally to try to go back to her mom's old apartment and get some information that sent her to the island was run by these sea queen sort of things, and so they basically realize she's there, try to capture her, but she gets away before they do. So when she comes off the island, they sort of capture her, but the old god needs to feed, so he just slaughters all of them. Like, so now they're after her, so they flee to another city. So there's this like the sanctuary city, and there's like these 2. So in addition to the witches and the humans and the dust court and her grandmother's court, which is the Dawn court, and then like there's now this other city that's trying to get to her. But what we see, like, what I found interesting was with the witches coming back is we get information, a lot of information on what's actually going on there. And they're actually basically the leaders of this cult, witch cult, are actually all possessed by old gods also. And so we actually have this other faction of old gods that we didn't realize. I mean, we saw that at the end, that the Mother Superior was possessed by an old god at the end of volume 3 or volume 1, but we find in this that like there's a whole bunch of them.
But they don't all seem to be as powerful as Maika, right?
No.
Like whatever she has is more primal or more powerful. It was able to beat the 2,000-year-old fox. It's kept her going. And it might be that that's like the prize or the weapon they're going after.
Well, they often refer to Zen, I think that's his name, as like the destroyer, or the not necessarily he was the smartest or even most powerful, but like most destructive.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way they refer to him often is that like he is, when it comes to a fight, he's the toughest of the old gods or whatever. Like the others have other abilities, but he was kind of a badass to a certain degree.
When he fully realizes who he is he going to try to destroy Maika? I mean, it's like the only reason he hasn't like consumed her because he can't remember for what he is. You know, there's this intrigue about why, if he is this scary and everybody else is after him because they want, you know, full power, is he going to finally realize the extent of his power and just, take over Maika, and does that have anything to do with why her mom brought her up the way she was? I mean, there's so much. The more you get into it, the more there's still unknown about this.
Well, and it also appears clear that, and we're not sure exactly what the Shaman Empress did, but she basically, like, the two of them appear to have basically been, like, in love to a certain degree, or some sort of form of that, because she basically tamed him and sort of appears to have turned him against the rest of the old gods at some point, because he basically served her, but you're still not sure exactly, like, you get hints of that relationship, but you're not sure exactly what that relationship was.
I'm glad you said that. You said the word clear for a second, and I don't know why we use the word clear in this.
There's nothing here.
Nothing in here is clear.
No,
for damn sure. No, you do. Again, it's one of those things where they keep giving you little snippets here and there. But it's one of those things where you almost feel like it's an unreliable narrator, right?
Yeah.
They're giving you bits and pieces, but you don't know what to actually take in and say, okay, this is real, this is not real. Like, who's actually telling the truth with certain things? And obviously, you when you see Zen, or when he's remembering things, and he goes in the past and he remembers, slaughtering this, and he's like, why would I do that? He was my friend, and my sister brother, and why would I do this? And and he's kind of like in turmoil himself, like, I've been sleeping so long, I lost all these memories, and like, how do I not know that I killed another one of my gods and fellow gods? And he's like, I don't understand this. And maybe it was one of those things where, like, the Shaman the Shaman Empress, tamed him so much where she kind of like flipped and warped his mind, where he's like, I'll do anything for you. He basically calls her his beloved. So it's like, that was his thing. He was in love with her. It's like, he'd do anything for her. And maybe that was one of the things where she was like, hey, you know what? I want to be all powerful, even though all these witches are essentially just humans that kind of like elevated themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's why, Marika has that extra, because she does have, some of the ancient blood in her. She is an archaic. So she does have like that little bit of little extra than they do or whatever. I don't know if they are just they have this thing with her where it's just like, hey, we want that and you have it and we don't, and how can we get that? And the Shaman Empress was apparently able to attain that, and they're like, we need to get that. Like, she was able to tame these gods and like do whatever she wanted. And but yeah, again, it's one of those things where, like, who to believe, right? Which narrator is actually telling the truth, and who's giving you the real truth. And you just don't know. You're just like, okay, just roll with it and see what happens.
I don't know if any of them know the whole truth.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that, the Zen doesn't even know his own history. No. He's getting bits and pieces, and other people have bits and pieces, and sometimes those line up and sometimes they don't. Yeah. Because in dealing with the Empress, I forgot what her name, but anyway, that was 3,000 years ago. Yeah.
Well, and it's just like when they go into her workshop, like, and I love when he's like trying to open the door and he can't remember. She's like, yeah. he's like, just give me a minute.
Yeah. She's like, oh, should I put you in what was it, the senile gods home? Yeah. Can't remember.
But when they go in there and the little guardian robot's in there and they're being attacked by all these like automatons, and the guardian's in there, well, I'm afraid it's still angry at Master Zen for his betrayal. So clearly there's something, like, which we never get detail on. He's like, betrayal? What foolishness is this? Because he doesn't have a clue what this robot's talking about. So there's a lot going on. There's all these things and all these layers, and I'm really enjoying it, but boy, is there a lot of shit going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we open up volume 3, I like the fact. So it's really a transition in the beginning. They're still on the boat. There's flashbacks to her kind of having this romantic relationship with Tuya. But then we leave Tuya because why give us too much information about that? That would just, destroy the whole point. They're on the boat, and then they get protected from the people coming after them, and they end up at was Tearshed, a refugee camp in Pontus Waters. And so this like, we just think this is a place the captain of the boat is taking them to get away from the people, attacking them. And then what I really like about this, for a guy who needs new glasses, but his health insurance won't pay for the good glasses and everywhere is closed right now. Chapter 13, the second half of it, is brightly lit and in a hotel. And I can see a little bit more without having to get really close. And it's nice. There's this respite where it looks like they're being fed like, dim sum. They're having a nice meal. And then all of a sudden, Archangel or Hawkman or whatever he is shows up.
Corbin, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. From what, the Dusk Court, I think.
Yeah.
And then we get a little bit of intrigue, and then chapter 14. Now they're going underground in this city, away from the brightly lit hotel, and there's the battle with these old dudes and the automatons, and it like completely flips everything. But the beginning of volume 3 or issue 13, if you're doing floppies, for me was just like a nice respite to catch my breath, to see a little flashback. Nothing destructive happened for a while. It was a nice meal which they just talked over, and so I really like that intro to this. It let you catch your breath after like some really crazy stuff happening for 15 or 12 issues.
Yeah. So I will say there's an interesting thing here that I want to talk about that goes back to something Dayymares said earlier. Is we meet a new member of the witches in this, and like we get her first reveal, which like this gorgeous.
Yeah,
even there you can kind of tell she's evil, but like, and then like they show her like again like here immediately as they're introducing her, she's like gorgeous, but yet you can tell she's evil. But then later, when she gets taken over by a piece of the mask, like she becomes sort of horrendous, like, and it's and I can't find it now. Like, yeah, I mean, you see her now, and it's like.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show like she was evil to start with, and now she's devolved into something like worse. And the way she uses the art, I just think that's another good example of what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah. And I mean, you could even see that with, Ren and some of the other, main characters. They're for the most part good. If they do something that's bad, they don't look good.
Yeah.
Yep.
So here, the big reveal, I feel like that we learn, the big thing we learn in volume 3, I feel like is, so we see the witches, we learn that they're all being controlled by old gods, like sort of almost like the old gods have taken completely over the bodies. Like it's not like Maika and Zen where she's still herself and he's inside her. The witches are just old gods. They're just forms that the old gods are using.
Yeah.
But what we find is this old god that I just showed, when the mask comes up, actually gets taken over by other old gods that are like that she refers to at one point as what is the word she calls them after she like
defiled?
Defiled, yeah. So there's like 3 now. There's Zen. There's these old gods that were sort of after Zen, and now there's these defiled that are even worse than they are.
They're the ones that are essentially like in a prison, basically another dimension or whatever. Yeah. There was one thing I know. So like, I mean, this whole thing when she starts going underground, she meets I forget her name, the other like sort of like arcanic witch. The lady with the antlers.
Yeah.
I forget her name. So like, she's cool as hell. Like some of her artwork is beautiful when you see her. But she's kind of telling them, hey, refuge island or city, we take in so many people, and we have the shield that protects everybody, but you have to activate it. And we can't really activate it because we don't have the blood of the ancients, basically. And essentially we're waiting for you, for her to come in. And as they're like kind of going underground to get to this area, it's pretty funny where we were talking about kind of Kippa being her moral compass and kind of keeping her grounded. And it's one of those things where she's Corvus is there, and he's talking, and he's like, oh, I'll do everything I can. And as she's going down, she's like, oh yeah, if something happens to me or whatever, she's like, what I want you to do. And he's like, you want me to go and protect the little fox, right? And she's like, fuck you. Like,
Yeah.
but he knew it was like, there's only one thing that you kind of care about, and it's her. For some reason, it's this little fox that you care about. And she was just like, she couldn't bring herself to be like, I kind of want you to protect it. She's just like, fuck you. Yeah, I do want you to protect it.
But yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So you can see that there's still that side of her. It's like, it's not completely still yet.
Right.
There's a slight bit of her that's still there. So I like that moment. So it was pretty fun. Yeah.
So he recognizes the way to get to her, and she does not appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I think the reason she doesn't appreciate that is because while everybody else has machinations within machinations and plots within plots and factions within factions, she's almost the only one that's going linear, right? You get in my way, I have to kill you.
Yeah.
You threaten Kippa, I'll have to protect her. Oh, you're after me now, I'll have to kill you. Oh, I'm, fuck you, guy in my arm. I want to get rid of you, but also help me to kill this person, and then I'll yell at you later. Like she's on a straight path. She wants to find out what's going on, but she doesn't know. Everybody else has their own bit of knowledge about what's going on behind the scenes. She's like straightforward. Okay, first I'll escape from this place, then I'll go run through the woods, then I'll get on the boat, and then I'll go to the island, and then I'll go to the fancy hotel with dim sum, and then I'll go underground in the secret city and fight the old gods and automatons. Like none of this is of a grand design for her. It's everybody else's grand design. For her, it's just like boom, 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 boom. I need to do this to figure something out, and I'll have flashbacks in the meantime.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So the other kind of reveal in here is that Master Ren still isn't done with his betrayal. Like, he goes down and it's not necessarily betrayal, is he's basically in some sort of debt to these other cats, and they tell him to bring them Kippa. Yeah. Which, like, if she's the only thing that Maika cares about, Master Ren probably cares about her almost as much, if not more. Like,
right.
She's like gonna try to trick her, and she's like, and then she gives him the I love you, and he's like, all right, I'll come help you. And he refuses to do it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that ends up not working out well. As we get the scene where basically they take her.
Yeah.
Or that she disappears, that Corvin, during the battle of the city and everything that goes on,
lost track of her.
Yeah, with the witches and the demon that comes forward. He tries to protect her, but he fails.
Yeah, he was fighting off a bunch of people, and she was trying to help a bunch of refugees, like head up the mountain or something like that, to try to get away. And she got snatched up.
Yeah, so that's where kind of the last thing we see here in terms of is now Kippa is missing, which that's not going to set well. So we sort of already know what Volume 4 is going to be. It's going to be he's going to go destroy a bunch of cats in order to get
Are we going to totally skip that until Volume 5? I mean,
you do. I've read 4.
You've read 4. Of course you do. Of course it skips it.
Nice.
So,
yeah.
I do like that there's a bit of agency given to Kippa. She's allowed to go in this city that's got like this revolutionary army, like refugees building up. Maika's kind of like, go find your fox people, go find the fox arcana, and you can go ahead and find them. So she's like looking around. She's like, where can I find other people like me? And so we're starting very slowly to develop this little bit of agency within Kippa, but at the same time, we've got Master Ren plotting against her. Is there a thing with cats and tails? Is it like the more tails you have, the more powerful in the cat hierarchy you are?
I think that's sort of the way it appears, but they don't really. I don't feel like they've really explained the tail. Like,
I know most of them have 2 tails or something like that, and yeah, they could be that if you have like a 3rd tail, then now all of a sudden you're.
Well, there's some that have like 6 or 7.
Yeah, some
pages. Yeah,
and there's punishments of cutting off their tails down to 1, and then they're considered like meaningless. Almost whatever they only have.
Like you'll see like Professor Tam Tam, who gives us all the like things, got like crap
4.
kind of tails. Yeah, 4 or 5.
4 bushy ones. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think the more tails, the more maybe not powerful, but otherwise. And you do get like I do love the cover of 15 because it's starting to show her with a little more like agency and like it's a very much a Kippa cover there that I really like because she's kind of standing on her own, like that she's starting to like. She may be naive, but she is growing up rapidly, being surrounded by Maika out of no choice.
You can see it when she was like, hey, you know what? These are my people, and I'm going to help. I'm going to be a scout. I'm going to, help these refugees, up the mountain and stuff like that. And, they, even the old lady who basically helped her was like, hey, they don't care about age. As long as you can use your senses well, they're like, we don't care. And she's just like, all right, well, I'm good at using my senses, so I'm gonna be a scout and I'm gonna go help these people. She's like, I don't care. These are my people, and we're gonna get the hell out of here. So you can see her maturity coming in, like she's actually starting to grow into it. It's like, hey, you know what? I can do certain things. I'm not just a helpless little fox and stuff like that. She's like, I can be of value, and I think going forward, I think they are gonna make her, and obviously she's. She just got captured and stuff like that. So I think, that's going to also like harden her a little bit and stuff like that. And, but I definitely think that she's going to be a key factor in this. They're definitely going to make her a key factor. She has to be. She has to be. There's no way they could just be like, oh, she was nothing. Let's kill her off. And it's like, nah, she has to be something.
I almost feel like in some ways when you get to the end of this, and I have no idea like where this is going, but that when we get to the end of this, Tacoma talked about either she's going to be like a leader of her own or she might, not make it. I almost feel like at the end of this, it's going to be Kippa that's telling the story. Like that this is ultimate, in some ways, Kippa's story that she's telling about her friend.
It could be.
Like, I don't know that for a fact, but I just feel like to a certain degree, that's where it's going, which means it's probably not where it's going. But I do sort of feel like in the end of this, this is going to be Kippa's story about her friend.
Okay.
Like, and I could be, like I said, that the fact that I feel that way means it's probably not at all what's going to happen.
It makes sense for every other comic and story we've ever read before, but this one, not that it's subverting major tropes or major themes, it's just subverting storytelling conventions.
Yeah.
While being familiar enough to like we all said at the beginning, keep us intrigued, keep us interested. It's enjoyable because you don't know which way they're going to go next. So, the last line is, they bring Corvin brings the cat back to Maika, and she's like, "What happened? What happened to Kippa?" And he's like, "Just says one word: family."
Yeah.
So. Maybe that means Maika's aunt who is after her, right? Mariko's sister. Or it could be something totally different, right? Like
maybe it's his family because they were cats. Or maybe
or Ren's family. I have no idea what it means, and I'm not going to second guess them. I'm not going to read the issues. I'll get the next trade. Just because the single issues is too much for me with this.
Yeah, I can't imagine like getting this as it comes out like every 6 weeks and trying to keep up with this. It would be like because you'd have to reread the whole thing every issue. Like
It's tough. That'd be tough.
I read the
go ahead.
4th trade, and
the 4th trade is out, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then the 5th trade is supposed to be out
by the end of the year sometime.
Yeah.
I noticed,
and
which
then
will cover up 230.
Yeah,
they're actually doing a one-shot story about some side story I read, which to me was really fascinating. Like that, there's something out there that they can't fit into their narrative that is already like really large.
Of course, I think I did see somebody talking about that like they were gonna like it was gonna be back sooner because they were doing this little side. It might have actually been about Kippa if I remember correct, but I can't remember for sure. I did something about that.
But I think the family, having read the 4th book, and not to give too much away on it by any means, but the family refers back to Maka's family.
Okay.
Her dad.
Oh, we didn't even touch on that.
Yeah.
Like, so we get
that was at the end of volume 2, right?
That's at the end of volume 2. Is basically the story the fox tells her is that, you know, her mother shot out someone with the bloodline of the Shaman Empress in them to try to like basically breed someone who could host the monster, basically, because her being a half wolf and like is what basically comes, and having the Shaman Empress's blood is what she was kind of shooting for. It's kind of the story the fox tells her, and we see at the end of it when she puts on the mask, this guy kind of has the symbol on his chest is bleeding. Is an older guy, and he basically says it's awake. Or I forget exactly what he says there, but it's sort of along those lines. Can you not sense it, child? The blood is awake. Our time has come around at last. So we don't know for sure if that's her dad, but that's kind of her dad is out there, and I have the feeling at some point we're going to meet him. So
yeah.
So yeah, that was a big thing we just totally skipped over. That they're like hinting at.
Well, again, I mean, there's so much into it that it's one of those things that you do have to reread because you will miss stuff, and you'll reread it and like, oh shit, oh okay, oh yeah, then you know, and you'll miss like a line that somebody says that refers to something else. And you're like, oh, that's what he was fucking mentioning. It's like,
right,
okay, now I get it. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, JP, you just like referenced a tattoo is revealing some information. Like you've got to do those deep dives to get everything in this. But the other reason why the father didn't resonate with me is they've created such a naturally matriarchal world. Like they never shove it in your face. But I can think of Stacey, right? The captain, or not the captain of the boat, but like the owner.
The women are all on top.
Right. I can think of of Corvin. I can't think of any other major characters of power or influence that are male in this world.
The brother shows up,
right? And he's
I think the 2 Tiger brothers, I think, have a little bit of power, but everybody else, like all the witches and the Dust Court, the Dawn Court, everybody seems to be her great grandmother or the old
Wolf.
Well, you know, as a female, like it's all like female driven.
And even sorry, didn't mean to interrupt, but even like the you know, they don't pray to gods or anything like that. They're all goddesses.
Goddesses.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's done so naturally that you just accept it without like feeling like you're being forced to understand it. It's just there. And I think that's really like, you know, that's why I didn't think about her dad that much. It's so woven into the fabric of this world. It's so natural that it just, you know, it becomes part of the scenery and not like something that you're hit over the head with.
Yeah. Well, the writer, I believe she's lesbian, right? She's gay, and you can see what she was trying to do, right? What she was trying to accomplish, and she was trying to make this world where there's a lot more female empowerment, but it's seamless, right? It's like you said, it's not in your face, and it's not, oh, we need to do this and we need to do that, and it's not one of those things where they constantly berating men or putting down men or anything like that. It's just the way it is. Like they just rose to power faster than men. So like instead of saying in our world, a man rose faster.
Exactly. There's no in our world. This is what compared to
exactly in this world, the women rose faster. There are men in power, but they're just not as powerful. And it's like that's just the way it was. And all the gods, like you said, were goddesses. Like they're like, oh my goddess, and it wasn't like, oh my god, it's oh my goddess. And it's very seamless, and that's the world that they built. And it's one of those things where it's not thrown in your face, and it's not like, oh, this is overdone. It's like, no, it's the world, and you grow accustomed to it because like, yeah, this is what it is. It's like, okay, and it was very, very well done on that aspect of it.
And the thing is they're not slamming you over the head with, oh, well, this is a matriarchal world, and look how much better it is. No, they're just as jacked up, or more so than any like world run by men or whatever. And I think that's part of why it doesn't seem heavy-handed in any way, is because these female leaders, there's a ton of female leaders in this world, like they're leading this world, and yet they're making all kinds of mistakes as well, and there's just as many problems. So it's not like, oh, look at this utopia, or it's real. I guess it makes it feel more real that there's still just as much horrible and jacked up stuff going on in this world, even though the women are in charge.
What I found interesting about it was it took me a few issues to notice that it was, matriarchal.
Yeah.
It was there the whole time. I just didn't notice. And I like that about it. I don't care who's in power as long as it doesn't feel forced one way or another.
Right.
And this one, it just fell in there and it worked.
Yeah. And I think that's a testament to the writing and how they just blended it in so well, where you didn't even see that. It wasn't, again, one of those things where it's foresight. Like, I think if it would have been one of those things where it was always like, the men or any other race getting put down all the time, and you would kind of see like, all right, this seems kind of forced, right? Like they're showing their power and their strength all the time. And this is one of the things like, no, it's not, like you said, the world is still jacked up. There's still crazy shit happening all over the place. There's one scene where Tuya is trying to form an alliance with this other
with the Dawn Court.
And they're like, oh, we need to form alliances. And they were like, oh, we need to get married, right? This is how it's done when you merge together. And it was just a seamless thing. Like, okay, it's two women. And it wasn't one of those things where you're like, well, isn't it usually like, no, it's like, okay, this is the world, right? This is how it's built. And this is how they, the matriarchy, that's the way it was. And it's so seamless the way it's written. And like you said, it's not forced. There's other things that are just seem very forced, and this isn't. It's just like, okay, yeah, I see it. Okay, cool. And it's one of those things where it's like the testament to the writing, and it's even though it's a little, again, there's so much and it's crazy, but the writing is still there, and it's still a very good story.
Yeah, the writing it's amazing, but the writing, like the way she's telling the story, even though there's lots of exposition at times, and you talked about giant word bubbles and that kind of stuff, but the writing is so good, like it holds its own with the art. It would be easy for this to be like an art book, like given the nature of the panels, but it's not. It's the writing holds its own, holds up to the art that we're getting. And I think that's, it's a testament to the two of them working together, but it's a testament to her writing skills that she can stand up to the art that Sana's putting out there. So we are at
the vision of both of them, right? I mean, the good writing, the good art only takes you so far unless you've got like a plan. I'm sure they know their end game really well, and they know every step along the way, and then they just have to write and draw those issues in between. But it feels like there's no accident. This is not like a 300 issue Spawn comic that's just going to like keep retelling cool stories. There is a plan for everything happening here.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody knows how long this is supposed
I
to go.
heard. I don't follow them on Twitter the way I follow like Hans on Instagram or Kieran Gillen on Twitter, like my other series. I really don't know a lot about them. But
I know that she said like the announcement. I saw the announcement where you were talking about there was the one shot, and she said like you won't have to wait as long for the next volume basically to start coming out. The break was not going to be as long this time, and then in the meantime we're giving you this one shot. And so I mean, there's the story. I'm going to guess there's probably 60-ish probably issues here. We'll see like how many volumes there actually ends up being, but I could see it being, it might go longer than that, who knows, but I don't think it's going to be,
it's not forever. They have an idea in mind.
And
there's only so much of Mako left that the old god can take.
I know, and I think it's one of those things where when they constructed this, they already had the end in mind, right? So like it's one of those things where like you get those stories where they just never ending, right? The Spawn, and it's just like you continue. Whereas this is like, hey, we know our end, right? We know our end. How are we gonna get there, right? Let's tell our story till we get to this end. And I think when you do that, you can tell a good story because there's a conclusion. We know what we're coming to. Just we're telling the steps on how to get there, but we know there's a definitive end, and I think they know that. And if you guys want, I think she lives in like Cambridge or something like that, or she's around here in Massachusetts, the writer. So I'll just zip over and talk to her real quick. I'll get to the end, all right?
Yeah.
I think your point is really well taken. It's too well constructed to be happenstance. Yeah. Everything is there for a reason and building towards a bigger story. And, as we were talking about, I just Googled Marjorie Liu's Wikipedia page. So keep in mind, this is Wikipedia, but, not only is she a lawyer, graduated with a law degree. When she was in college, she started like a web page as a Wolverine and Jubilee page as a fan site. So this is, and she wasn't a comic book reader. She loved Wolverine and Jubilee from the TV show. So that puts her clearly, she's 8 years younger than me, and that puts her exactly in like she was a teenager when the X-Men TV show came out. She's written like 17 novels in addition to like her comic work with X-23 and Monstress. And she worked with the Chinese government and like their rules regarding genetically modified food. And then now she's in Cambridge. I mean, this is an accomplished woman who's whatever she does really well at a high level.
Definitely.
So we're at an hour and 18 minutes, which is longer than I usually want these to go. So let's get some final thoughts on these two volumes, and then we will close this out. Let's start with Dayymares. Any final thoughts about where the story is, these two volumes, what you're looking forward to going forward, anything like that?
Well, I mean, at the end of it, they sure went out with a bang, you could say. At the end of this. And I've got the hardback, and it's got a glossary.
Which is very nice. So how many volumes are in the hardback, or is that each?
It's volume 1 through 3.
1 through 3.
Oh, okay.
Of the trade paperbacks. So it's what we're up to now.
Okay. Very cool.
And then I bought just the trade paperback of 4.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I guess 5, they're just now got to the point where they just now, issue 30's been out not too long, and they're getting ready to publish volume 5. So
yeah, I think it's October or November. I saw whenever I was looking at it. So
nice.
So any other final thoughts?
No, I'm excited to see where everything goes. It's just such beautiful art. Relatively confusing, but wonderful.
Yeah. I think so.
Well put.
Yeah. Okay, Tacoma, what about you? Any final thoughts before we close this out?
Two final thoughts. One is, to compare this to other shows that you do, Sex Criminals was a book that lost its way because it went from being a joke book that made an impact and a statement to kind of just like making impactful statements, but not really having a great linear narrative. Whereas this one really has a strong narrative. And then Saga, which has always been awesome, but has taken a year and a half off now because I think they weren't sure where to go with it. And so that's just a testament to Monstress, like this complex a story that still has like a linear narrative of Maika is going to just plow through everything to find out who and what she is and, you know, make life safe for her. It's just beautiful and wonderful in its own right. And I'm afraid to say what I'm looking forward to, because what I'm looking forward to most is that they'll just drop a bomb on me that I wasn't expecting. Like, I don't want to say I'm looking forward to Kippa's story, because they might have a story about a character I haven't met yet that's just as compelling. So they really do some amazing things here. And I'm willing at this point to accept whatever they're going to throw at me.
No. What about you, Los? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually the same way. I'm actually excited to see what happens next. I know I wasn't the biggest fan of the first volume because, again, it was just so convoluted. But they've flushed out enough in volume 2 and 3 for me to definitely be like, okay, I'm on board. You can almost see some kind of vision as to what they're doing. You can see the characters developing a little more and where they're kind of headed. Maika, you can kind of see now that you know a little more of her background, why she is the way she is. You can kind of feel for her a little more. Side characters have always been amazing in this. I like how they highlight a lot of the side characters. And it's not just always about her. They kind of bring in all these other side characters, which I like. But yeah, I'm excited to see where they go from here. But again, they definitely do have an end game, and that's the good thing about it. You know, it's going to come to a conclusion. It's not going to just keep on going, and she's never going to figure it out, and she's not. You know, it's coming to an end sometime. When? Don't know, but it is coming. It's not one of those things that's like, oh, this is going to be a 300 issue thing. And no, 50, 60 issues maybe, and then we'll get a definitive answer. And I'm anticipating something massive going to happen.
Yeah.
One thing that didn't mean to interrupt, but I just wanted to put in one final thought that I sort of thought about. One thing that I think's interesting is even once they finish this story, they could easily go back and tell other stories in the same universe.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't be boring. It wouldn't feel like they were rehashing stuff. They could go back and tell, stories about the God Empress or, whatever,
Definitely.
Yeah, I would be, if they got done with this and then they were like, we're going to tell like the story of the rise of the shaman, her story, I'd be like, give it to me. I think I'm just going to echo kind of some of our thoughts from the beginning and what you guys just said, which is like, I have no idea what's really going on, but I'm enjoying not knowing. Like, they very much are treating the reader like they're not spoon feeding the reader. They're like, this is our story. You'll get what you need when you need it. We're not giving you all of it right now. And I respect that and I like it. I do not enjoy writing that where it's like, okay, we feel like we got to spoon feed you everything. Now, sometimes it can get so convoluted if you don't give us enough, but I feel like they give us enough that you feel like you don't know what everything that's going on, but they're giving you enough that you're like, okay, I can find the way. Like, and I'm not completely lost, but I just don't know all the mechanisms.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I am absolutely down for continuing to read it. I don't think I may eventually buy a few like of the single issues just because some of these covers are stupid, like ridiculous. Yeah. But I will never read it that way. You've got to read it like this. I think
the writing is so sophisticated that doing that, you can tell that she wrote 17 novels. It reads like a novelist, and when you read it's so sophisticated in the writing. It's not your typical comic book, and you can get that sense when you're reading it. So, like you said, it's not being spoon fed to you. You really need to dive in and read this, and not just be like, oh, I can skim through it really fast and I'm good.
No, you cannot skim
this. Nope.
I'm really glad I picked
sold this for $1 because it was a little bit bent on there. So if any of your readers want this, I'd be glad to ship it to them for free. I already have the hardcover, so I don't need this for $1. I wasn't going to leave it there. So anybody listening, just hit me up on IG if you want volume 3 for free.
Nice. There you go. Awesome.
So you guys got. Oh wait, Dayymares, you were saying something else.
I'm really glad I picked up the hardcover. Just because it's nice. It's
you have a different hardcover cover than I have.
This is the is it Barnes and Noble?
Oh, okay.
Books a Million.
Does that have?
I think it's Barnes and Noble.
I might just have to buy that because.
Well, what's interesting about this one is it comes signed by the author.
Nice.
And it was only like $40.
Oh my lord! Are you kidding me?
Yep.
No, it's kind of hard to see, but
oh yeah,
no, it's gorgeous. Cool.
Yeah,
I've got Sana Takita's signature on issue 1, first, second, and third print, but I don't have Marjorie Liu's signature on anything.
Yeah,
so I really want that.
I forgot what I was doing. I was looking at something on Barnes and Noble, and I saw that, and I was like, it said signed. I was like, I wonder who it's signed by. So I asked on Instagram. I'd already ordered it, and then I asked, I wonder if he signed it. And somebody told me it was the author, and once I got it, that's who it was signed by.
That's very cool.
Nice.
All right. You guys got anything else you want to promote before we get out of here?
Promote the shows that I'm on because I'm too tired to do my own shows. So I'll be with Just a Rican on Saturday. I got the Saturday Morning Cartoon Crew on Shortbox Padawan. I'll be on you for volume 4 in 2 months from now, but I got nothing of my own because I'm just too busy.
No.
Yeah.
Dayymares, I know you make lots of videos.
Oh yeah. I was trying to make a 2-minute video every 2 weeks, but I haven't quite done that. I made 2 of them, and that's it.
Yeah, well, do what you can do. Do what you want to do. That's the whole point of this. It's supposed to be fun. So, Lowe's, my friend, what do you got? Anything coming up?
I got nothing other than next week. I'll be back on here.
Yeah, I didn't even grab this.
We'll be doing Wicked and Divine.
Oh, nice.
So I'll be jumping on that one as well.
So that's next for the Indie Show, volumes 2 and 3 of Wicked and Divine. And I haven't actually dove into these yet, so I need to get started.
Right. Yeah.
All right, we're almost an hour and a half. I want to thank the few people that hung out with us tonight. It wasn't a huge crew, but I think there's a bunch of other stuff going on as always anymore. So thank you for those that hung out. I want to thank this awesome panel. I really enjoy reading this. If you've not picked up Monstress, I recommend you give it a shot. It's not easy, but it's worth it. I think is where I think we all fall. And so with that, I'm going to get out of here.